Hey everybody, I'm Tara Murphy and this is my cat, Fluffer Nutter. He's gonna join us for part of this video. So I just want to chat with you guys about my background and let you know how I got into all of this with African dance and drumming. I've had quite a journey with it, and I'm going to try not to be too long-winded because I can go on for hours about this. But basically, I became very interested in African dance and drumming as a teenager when I first discovered this amazing album of traditional Yoruba drumming from Nigeria from a great, very famous drummer named Babatunde Olatunji, who came to America in the 1950s. And he was a mentor for generations of drummers and musicians, including Santana and Mickey Hart and many, many other notable drum teachers, and including myself. I first heard this album as a teenager and it absolutely galvanized me. I also have African roots. My mother is African American. My father is Irish American. So I have to say that my heritage was really the first propeller for me to want to dive into studying this. I had a great hunger for learning about African culture because I grew up in the Midwest and we had very little African studies. There was very little presented to me in growing up in the public schools in learning about African cultures. So I had a very deep desire to learn about my ancestry, to learn about my ancestral heritage. So when I went to college in the East, I was finally able to enroll in many African studies courses and dive into learning substantial scholarly works and study art history and study the music. I actually took an African dance class in college and I learned the drumming. And it was in college that I applied for a traveling fellowship. So after my junior year, I was able to go to Ghana. That was back in 1990. I'm aging myself here. But I was able to go to Ghana back then in West Africa. It's right on the coast of West Africa. And I spent about 4 months there. I really immersed in the culture and I had a profound experience on so many levels. But I have to say that primarily it was just really a revelation for me as a biracial African American woman to experience the incredible richness of my ancestral culture, to see how sophisticated and civilized and how many incredible cultural traditions come from West Africa that really inform our own American culture. But when I was there, it was revelatory just to see how beautiful the culture was and witness it for my own eyes and learn things that I was never presented with growing up. So that was really like a deep healing for me because I think there were self-esteem issues there and just being able to claim my own heritage and be proud about it and to not believe the stereotypes that we often get in America that somehow African culture is somehow inferior, that African culture is not as good as or as sophisticated or civilized as European culture. We have stereotypes that everybody in Africa is in dire poverty and experiencing famine, and there's war everywhere. Well, maybe those things may be true in certain pockets of Africa, but it's certainly not true for the entire continent. So I, it just absolutely, I can't say too much how much it absolutely changed my life. It planted within me a great passion for African culture, for studying about Africa, and also transmitting the truths about African culture to my fellow Americans. I felt that all African Americans and people of African descent all over the New World need to go to Africa to heal that part of ourselves, that where we haven't been educated enough, and that part of ourselves that may feel that somehow African culture is not as good as. And I came back with the conviction that no way, African culture is the bomb. It is absolutely on par with every other civilization in the world, and it deserves to be studied. It deserves to be celebrated and championed. And that's really been my mission in much of my adult life, is to help educate people about African culture and to celebrate it with my classes, with all the teaching that I do, and with the performances that I do. I have a professional African dance and drum performing troupe called Amaya Dance and Drum. And we do a lot of educational performances in schools, and we just show people the beauty and the joy and the rich culture that the many different cultures that come from West Africa. So that's really one of the first points of my background with this beautiful and incredible art form, is my personal journey, my own heritage, and my healing around that. And I just have to say on an ending note that I have gained such a passion for this culture once again. It's like a fountain that will never stop. I have so much undying love for the dance. I'm going to cry. The dance and the drumming and the culture. So I'm just so blessed to have been able to find that passion and tap into it and just share that joy with everybody that I meet. So I'm going to continue this talk in other videos. So this will be my first video. Thank you for joining me.